Let me tell you something that may be hard to hear, but absolutely vital for your transformation. You're not stuck because you're weak. You're stuck because you're not ready. People say they want to change. They say they want more, better. But let me ask you, have you decided that you will no longer tolerate your current state? Because that is when change begins. We live in a world where the desire to change is almost universal. Everyone wants something different, a better job, healthier body, more fulfilling relationships, more money, more impact, more peace. And yet, if desire alone created results, the entire world would be transformed by now. The truth is, desire isn't the trigger for change. Readiness is. Here's what most people don't realize: wanting something and being ready for it are two completely different things. You can want to get fit for years and never step into a gym. You can want to leave a toxic relationship, but keep going back. You can want to start a business, but stay stuck in planning mode for a decade. The reason isn't that you don't care or don't believe. The real reason is you haven't reached the point where change became a necessity. Readiness comes from a much deeper place than just wanting. It comes from emotional leverage. It comes from a shift in identity. It comes when staying the same becomes more painful than facing the unknown. Until that moment, you will continue to justify your current reality. You'll say things like, now's not the right time, or I just need to figure things out first, or I'm waiting for the perfect opportunity. But none of that is truth. It's just a delay mechanism, psychological safety net that allows you to avoid the discomfort of growth. You have to understand something foundational. Your brain is not wired for change. It's wired for survival. That means it will always choose the familiar over the unknown. Even if the familiar is miserable, you'll keep returning to what's predictable because at least you know what to expect. And that's where most people live, not because they don't have the capacity to change, because they haven't built the emotional momentum that makes change unavoidable. That's why readiness matters more than motivation. You can be motivated and still not act. You can read books, listen to podcasts, watch videos, get inspired. But if you haven't hit that inner switch where you say, enough, no more, then nothing sticks. Real change begins when you get emotionally honest with yourself, when you admit the cost of your current choices. You realize the price you're paying for staying in the same loop. When you stop pretending that you're fine when you're not, that moment is painful, but it's also sacred. Because that pain is the beginning of your freedom. Some people hit that moment through a crisis, a breakdown, a health scare, a financial collapse, a betrayal, and suddenly the pain forces them to wake up. But others hit it silently in the middle of a quiet evening when their heart whispers, I can't do this anymore. That whisper, that's the real you ready to emerge. The version of you that's tired of tolerating less than you were created for. Once that shift happens, once you stop waiting for the right time and decide now is the time, everything changes. You stop relying on willpower and start relying on identity. You stop trying to feel motivated and start making decisions from power. You stop negotiating with your excuses and start setting standards that pull you forward. Because when you're truly ready to change, you don't need to be pushed. You pull yourself, you create momentum, you attract the right people, the right energy, the right ideas, because your actions begin to align with your vision. So if you find yourself stuck, if you've been wanting to change for a long time but haven't moved, ask yourself one powerful question. Have I truly decided? Do I want it? Not. Wouldn't it be nice? Not. I'll try. A real decision says, this is who I am now. I don't live like that anymore. I don't settle for that anymore. That chapter is closed. This is my standard from today forward. And when that decision is backed by clarity and emotional energy, change becomes inevitable. The good news, you don't need to wait for a tragedy or trauma to get there. You can decide now, right now. You can make the pain of staying the same feel real, not someday. Today, you can look at your life with such honesty that it shakes you awake. And from that moment, your readiness becomes your power. You don't need to be perfect to change. You don't need all the answers. You just need to be ready to stop lying to yourself and start leading yourself. Desire is what starts the fire. But readiness is what makes you walk through it. And when you do, you don't just change your circumstances. You change who you are. That's when transformation becomes permanent. Pain is not the enemy. In fact, pain may be the most powerful teacher you'll ever encounter in your life. Most people try to avoid pain at all costs. They numb it, distract themselves from it, run from it, or pretend it's not there. But pain has a purpose. It's there to wake you up. It's there to get your attention. Pain is not a punishment. Pain is feedback. It's life telling you something is out of alignment. Something isn't working. Something has to change. We're conditioned to see pain as something negative. But what if you saw it differently? What if pain was the signal that transformation is knocking on your door? If the struggle you're in right now isn't trying to destroy you, it's trying to push you to grow. Think about it. Nobody ever changes when they're comfortable. Comfort is the enemy of progress. As long as things are okay, as long as you can manage, as long as you can tolerate your circumstances, you'll stay exactly where you are. Because comfort never forces you to examine your life. Comfort never demands more of you. It lets you stay asleep. But pain is different. Pain shakes you. It breaks through the noise. It forces you to face truth. The truth about how you've been living. The truth about what you've been avoiding. The truth about who you've become. When pain becomes greater than your fear of change, that's when transformation begins. Pain is the force that moves people out of toxic relationships. It's what wakes people up after years of neglecting their health. It's what finally motivates someone to start their business, change careers, speak up, walk away, begin again. And no, it's not always dramatic. Sometimes the pain is subtle, but it grows. That quiet dissatisfaction, that low-level anxiety, that Sunday night dread before the work week starts, that's pain too. It's the pain of misalignment. And the longer you ignore it, the louder it becomes. Eventually, the discomfort of staying the same outweighs the fear of what's on the other side. That's the moment people make real decisions, not half-hearted wishes, not resolutions they forget a week later. Decisions that stick, decisions that shape a new identity. That's how powerful pain is. It creates a breaking point. That breaking point becomes your breakthrough. But here's the key. You don't need to wait for the pain to become unbearable. You don't need to hit rock bottom to rise. You can use pain intentionally. You can sit with it, listen to it, learn from it. Ask yourself, what is this pain trying to tell me? What am I no longer willing to tolerate? What part of my life am I outgrowing? Because once you stop seeing pain as something to run from and start seeing it as something to work through, you gain access to clarity and power that was always inside you, but hidden beneath denial and distraction. Pain is the doorway to presence. When you're hurt, you're fully here. You're not floating through life. You're in your body. You're awake. In that state, you have the power to make real, lasting choices. Look back on your life. The strongest parts of you, they were forged in fire. They were born from moments that tested you, stretched you, even broke you for a while. You didn't stay broken. You adapted. You evolved. You rebuilt. You discovered strength you didn't even know you had. And that didn't happen in the easy times. It happened in the hard ones. This is not about glorifying pain. This is about honoring the role it plays in your evolution. If you numb it, you miss the lesson. If you run from it, you delay your breakthrough. But if you face it, if you feel it fully, if you use it as fuel, then it becomes your greatest ally. The people who live with the most depth, the most purpose, the most drive are often the ones who have faced the most internal storms. Not because they enjoyed it, but because they refused to let it go to waste. That's the choice in front of you. This pain bury you, or will it build you? Will you let it paralyze you, or will you let it push you? Because that pain you feel, it's not the end. It's the beginning. It's the signal that you're ready for something greater. You don't change when you feel like it. You change when you have to. And often pain is the only voice loud enough to make you listen. The question is, are you listening now? Because if you are, then you're already halfway there. The pain has done its job. Now it's your move. Every lasting change you want in life begins with identity, not strategy. You can chase new habits, build routines, set goals, and even achieve short-term results. But if your identity stays the same, you'll eventually snap back to your old patterns. That's not because you're broken. It's because the strongest force in the human psyche is the desire to remain consistent with who we believe we are. Your identity is the internal thermostat of your life. It determines how much love, success, health, abundance, and happiness you allow yourself to experience. You might say you want more. You might even act like it for a while. Unless you shift the underlying story of who you believe yourself to be, you'll always unconsciously find a way to return to your old baseline. That's why people can lose weight, then gain it all back. It's why someone can get out of debt, only to find themselves overspending again. It's why someone can leave a toxic relationship, but end up repeating the same dynamics with someone new. Because even though their actions changed temporarily, their identity, the image they hold of themselves, did not. Here's the truth most people miss. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your self-image. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. You can try to force new behavior with discipline, and it may work for a time, but transformation happens when the new behavior becomes who you are, not just something you're doing. That's the difference between surface change and identity change. Surface change is exhausting because you're constantly swimming upstream. Identity change flows. It becomes natural, effortless, automatic. When someone says, I'm not a smoker anymore versus I'm trying to quit, those are two completely different identities, and the outcomes will match the belief, not just the effort. So the question is, who do you believe you are? Because everything you do flows from that answer. If you believe you're someone who always struggles, you'll sabotage every opportunity that looks like success. If you believe you're not worthy of love, you'll push away anyone who tries to give it. If you believe you're bad with money, even when you earn more, you'll find a way to lose it. Your identity drives your decisions, and your decisions shape your destiny. That's why the real work isn't just behavior modification. It's identity transformation. You have to decide to become someone new, not just act like someone new. You have to build a new internal narrative that supports the life you want to live. And that starts by breaking up with the old story you've been telling yourself for years. Maybe you've been telling yourself, I'm not disciplined, or I'm always the one who gets hurt, or I never finish what I start. But those are not facts, they're patterns. And every pattern can be rewritten. You just have to stop confusing your past with your potential. Who you are isn't who you have to remain. Your past may have shaped you, but it doesn't define you. Unless you let it, it all begins with a decision, a bold, non-negotiable, A reversible decision to become the kind of person who no longer tolerates the old version of life. And from that decision, you must create alignment. Alignment between your words, your actions, your habits, and your vision. You don't wait until you feel ready. You step into the identity first and let your emotions catch up. Ask yourself, if I were already that person, the fit one, the wealthy one, the bold one, the loving one, what would I do today? Then do it and over until the actions feel natural, until the old version of you starts to feel like a costume that no longer fits. That's not fake. That's leadership. That's how transformation happens. You act as the version of you who already exists on the other side of your fear. And the more consistently you show up that way, the more your brain rewires, the more you believe, and eventually the more you become. Identity isn't something you discover. It's something you design. You don't have to wait for someone to validate who you are. You choose, and once you do, everything in your life either falls away or falls into place because you're no longer acting from who you were. You're living from who you've decided to become. That's the secret. Lasting change is never about doing more. It's about becoming more. When you shift the identity, the behavior takes care of itself. The moment you do that, really do that, you don't just change your results. You change your future. Every result in your life is the outcome of a pattern. Success isn't random and neither is failure. If you pay attention, both leave trails. They leave clues, signs, habits, mindsets, decisions, and emotional states that led you exactly to where you are now. The question is, are you willing to look at those clues with absolute honesty? Most people don't take the time to decode their own lives. They look at success as luck and failure as misfortune. That kind of thinking makes you a victim of circumstances, not the author of your outcomes. If you're truly committed to changing your life, you must be willing to study it, dissect it, trace it back. Ask yourself what's working, what's not, and why. The truth is, successful people aren't better than you. They're not more gifted, more special, or more lucky. They've simply figured out a better system, consciously or unconsciously. They've noticed what works, they've repeated it, they've cut out what doesn't, they've turned winning behaviors into rituals, they've found their blueprint. At the same time, unsuccessful people also follow blueprints. They just don't realize it. They repeat thought patterns, habits, emotional reactions, and limiting beliefs that quietly sabotage their results. And because those patterns often feel familiar or comfortable, they go unchallenged. That's why failure tends to repeat itself until the root cause is addressed. If you've failed repeatedly in any area of life, relationships, finances, health, confidence, it's not a matter of bad luck. It's a matter of a recurring strategy that doesn't serve you. You're using an approach that's leading you to pain instead of progress. And the moment you take responsibility for that is the moment you take your power back. Here's what most people do when they failed. Either blame something external, the economy, other people, the timing, or they internalize the failure and make it personal. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. This is just how I am. But both responses keep you stuck, keeps you angry. The other keeps you small. Neither leads to change. The key is not to judge the failure. The key is to investigate it. Look at it like a scientist, not a critic. What patterns preceded it? What emotions were present? Stories were running in your mind. What did you ignore? What did you tolerate? What decision did you delay? What standards did you lower? When you ask these kinds of questions, failure becomes feedback. It becomes useful. It becomes your greatest teacher. Because behind every painful experience is a truth about how you operate. And when you find that truth, you can change it. It's not just about eliminating what doesn't work. It's about modeling what does. Success leaves clues everywhere in the people you admire, in the lives you want to emulate, in the processes that others have used to build something extraordinary. Most efficient way to succeed is not to reinvent the wheel. It's to find someone who's already doing what you want to do and study them. Success has a structure, whether it's in fitness, business, communication, or emotional resilience. Repeatable principles that work: clarity, discipline, focus, standards, environment. These things don't just show up in one person's life. They show up in the lives of everyone who is thriving. And when you begin to spot those clues, you can install them into your own life. You can replace disempowering patterns with empowering ones. You can stop repeating generational cycles. You can shift from reacting emotionally to responding intentionally. You can build momentum that compounds over time, not just in one area, but across every area of your life. But none of that is possible until you get brutally honest with yourself. You have to stop pretending not to know what's holding you back. You do know, you've seen the signs, you've felt the pain, you've had the instinct to change, but maybe you ignored it because change felt too uncomfortable or too uncertain. The question is, how many more times are you going to repeat the same lesson before you learn from it? Life is not trying to punish you. It's trying to develop you. Every failure is a message. Every setback is an invitation. Every breakdown carries the seed of a breakthrough, but only if you choose to listen, to learn, and to lead yourself through it. So take a close look at the results you've been getting. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't justify it. Track the pattern. Reverse engineer the result. Follow the clues. Because the answers you're looking for aren't out there. They're already inside your behavior. Your past is the textbook. Your patterns are the syllabus. The next level of your life begins the moment you stop repeating what doesn't serve you and start mastering what does. People like to believe that logic drives their decisions, that they act based on facts, plans, and rational thought. If that were true, everyone would follow through on what they already know. The truth is, knowledge is rarely the problem. Emotion is. It's not logic that moves people, it's feeling. You don't act because you understand something. You act because you feel it deeply enough that not acting becomes impossible. How many times have you known exactly what to do? Whether it was to eat healthy or leave a toxic relationship, make that phone call, pursue that opportunity, and still done the opposite or done nothing at all. It's not because you were confused. It's not because you needed more information. It's because the emotional fuel wasn't there. There wasn't enough urgency, pain, love, fear, anger, courage, or passion to compel you forward. Every breakthrough begins with an emotional shift. Logic might plant the seed, but emotion is what breaks the ground open. Emotion gives movement to your knowledge. It's the spark that ignites the fire. You may understand something intellectually for years, but the day it clicks, the day you feel it in your chest, in your gut, in your heart, that's the day everything changes. Most powerful transformations come from an emotional tipping point, a moment where the weight of indecision becomes too heavy and something inside you snaps. That snap is not logical, it's primal. It's when your soul says, I've had enough. It's the moment where your emotions scream louder than your excuses. And when that happens, you act, not later, not after a plan, right now. That's the power of emotional energy. This is why people can hear the same message 100 times and do nothing, and then hear it one more time and finally change. It wasn't the words that were different. It was the state they were in when they heard them. Their emotional state made them ready. And in that moment, the information wasn't just interesting. It was urgent. It became personal. We don't remember most of the logical things we learn, but we never forget what we feel. Emotion etches experiences into our nervous system. It wires our beliefs. It shapes our expectations. It defines how we interpret the world around us. This is why two people can go through the same event and walk away with completely different meanings. Is devastated, the other is driven. The difference is the emotional meaning they attach to it, and that meaning becomes their story. If you want to change your life, you have to change your emotional relationship to the areas where you're stuck. If you're procrastinating, it's because you've emotionally linked more pain to starting than to staying still. If you avoid confrontation because you've attached fear to being seen or rejected. If you keep settling in life, it's because deep down, you've linked comfort to safety and risk to danger, and none of that will shift until your emotional associations shift. That's why it's not enough to tell yourself what you should do. You must condition yourself to feel what's truly at stake. You need to experience the cost of staying the same and the joy of rising higher, not just in theory, but in your nervous system. You must engage your emotions deliberately, not accidentally, because the moment your emotional truth changes, your behavior will too. The fastest way to access this kind of emotion is to change your physical and mental state. Emotion lives in the body. It's not just a thought, it's a chemistry. You change your body, your breathing, your posture, your focus, and you change the emotion you're capable of accessing. This is why some people seem unstoppable. They've trained their body and mind to generate the emotional states that drive bold action, states like certainty, hunger, gratitude, and courage on demand. On the flip side, if you wait to feel ready before you act, you'll wait forever. Readiness doesn't show up before action. It's created by action. The emotion you need comes after you move, not before. But to move, you must first spark even the smallest emotional shift. That shift can start with a single question, a single thought, a single decision. The most important emotional muscle you can build is the ability to change your state. Because when you control your state, you control your decisions. And when you control your decisions, you control your destiny. The most successful people in the world aren't emotionless. They've just learned how to use emotion as fuel, not friction. They use it to rise, not retreat. Your life doesn't change through logic alone. It changes when emotion unlocks your power. You don't need more information. You need a reason that moves your heart, stirs your gut, and wakes up the part of you that refuses to settle. When that part comes alive, the action is automatic. Your new life begins. There's a common belief that if you want to change your life, you need to be more motivated. People spend years chasing motivation, books, videos, podcasts, seminars, hoping for that surge of energy that finally gets them to take action. And sure, motivation feels great. It can get you started, but it's temporary. It fades. It's unreliable. And if your success depends on being motivated, you'll live a life of inconsistency, because there will be days you wake up inspired and there will be days you wake up tired, angry, sad, stressed, or unmotivated altogether. What happens then? Do you just stop? This is where most people fall off. They confuse motivation with commitment. They confuse inspiration with decision. But the truth is, the people who create real lasting change in their lives aren't the ones who feel motivated every day. They're the ones who raised their standards and decided that no matter how they feel, they're going to follow through. Standards are what define your floor, not your ceiling, your floor. Your minimum, your non-negotiables. It's the level you refuse to dip below. It's the level you decide is simply who you are now. If you look at any area of your life, your health, your finances, your relationships, it's not determined by your goals. It's determined by your standards. Not what you want, but what you accept. Everyone wants to be healthy. Everyone wants financial freedom. Everyone wants connection, purpose, and fulfillment. But not everyone has the standards to live that reality. Some people have a standard of going to the gym no matter what. Others only go when they feel like it. Some people have a standard of saving and investing. Others only do it when it's convenient. Some people have a standard of communicating with love and honesty. Others wait until conflict forces their hand. You can set all the goals you want, but if they're built on the foundation of weak standards, they'll collapse the moment pressure shows up. Standards are what hold you up when life gets messy, when the novelty wears off, when no one is watching. They're the invisible contracts you've written with yourself about who you are, what you do, and what you never tolerate again. You raise your standards, everything else rises with them. Your habits shift. Your choices shift. Your boundaries get stronger. You stop settling for things that don't match the new identity you've claimed. And the best part is, you don't have to wait for some big event to raise your standards. You can do it now. You can decide right now that the version of yourself who tolerates procrastination, laziness, excuses, toxic people, or self-sabotage is done. You can draw a line and say, that ends here. People often think discipline is hard, but you know what's harder? Living a life where your standards are too low, where you constantly betray your potential. You look in the mirror and know you're capable more, but your habits don't match it. That pain adds up. That quiet frustration becomes unbearable. And it doesn't go away until you say, I'm done living like this. From now on, rise. That's what happens when you switch from needing motivation to being driven by standards. Motivation whispers, you can do it. Standards demand, this is what we do now. Motivation needs energy. Standards create energy, because when something becomes part of who you are, you don't have to think about it. You just live it. It becomes automatic. It becomes effortless. Not because it's easy, but because it's aligned. Your current life is a reflection of your current standards, not your dreams, not your intentions, but what you've trained yourself to tolerate. And the moment you raise that bar, your reality will begin to reorganize itself to match. People will treat you differently. Opportunities will appear. Your confidence will grow, not because the world changed, but because you did. So stop waiting to feel ready. Stop waiting for some surge of motivation to save you. You're not waiting for a mood. You're waiting for a standard. And that standard comes from one place only: decision, not a half-hearted wish. A firm, final, powerful decision that this is who you are now, that this is how you live now. Once that decision is made, there's no going back. There's only forward. The life you want isn't built through bursts of motivation. It's built through a foundation of unshakable standards that you live by every single day, especially on the days you don't feel like it, because that's where character is forged. That's where greatness begins. That's how change becomes permanent.